What is going on, Alabama fans? Chris Daughtery here with the Alabama Football Report by Chat Sports. And coming up on today's show, Alabama defensive coordinator and a bunch of different other players on the defensive side of the ball spoke to Alabama media yesterday, and they had a lot of good takeaways, I think, from those press conference, kind of scrum-style press conferences there. So we're going to just kind of dive into some of the latest news and rumors from the defensive side of the ball here on today's show. Before we get into that, though, I asked you guys yesterday to go and give me a follow on Twitter, and you guys showed up and showed out for that. So I just wanted to give a shout-out to a couple of people that were some of the first people that ended up following me on Twitter there. Beth, Scott, Rammer, Jammer, Superfly, and then Michael as well. Really do appreciate you guys for following me over there on Twitter, X, whatever you guys want to call it. I'm not going to call it X. It's Twitter till the day I die, or till the day it's not an app anymore. So go over there and give me a follow over on Twitter. Like I said yesterday, the bosses want me to do a little bit better on that side of things. So help me out. Our next goal anyways, is to get to 400 followers. So help me out. Go over there, follow me on Twitter. That's at Chris Chat Sports. All right, the first takeaway I thought from yesterday's, scrum press conferences was Kane Wommack was really asked about that defensive line and specifically the run defense. He spoke about, the offensive side of the ball during the scrimmage last Saturday. Jam Miller in particular really did start off hot. And look, I am, constantly nervous about our run defense, and not necessarily that they were horrible last season by any means, but I think just, when you look to this Kane Wommack style of defense, you look at that defensive line and, man, the gaps, the splits are just so wide. It really relies on every single person from those defensive linemen to those linebackers to, just hit their gaps, and everybody has to do their job perfectly to plug up some of those seams that obviously were opening up during that first scrimmage, at least early on in that scrimmage anyway. So Kane Wommack was asked about, the run defense, and it's a little bit of a lengthy quote here, but stay with me because I do think it is a good one here from Kane Wommack. He said, I think overall we've been really solid, really positive, and I think the different variations of the run game that we're going to see throughout the season, I think that we have spent an obscene amount of time making sure the different variations of the run game that we are ready for and geared up for, that we have answers to all of those things. In the scrimmage at the beginning there, we had a misfit that turned into 2 missed tackles, which is uncharacteristic for us. We were fortunate enough to be able to get a stop down there at the goal line, which is great, but we really shouldn't have ever had that happen in the first place. We are operating with efficiency in the run game. So those are things that we have just got to continue to harp on and, work and have the same call that we have run this week. Our guys have done a really nice job on that. That is what you want to see. And last year, when you're talking about the run defense, like I said a second ago, it wasn't, terrible by any means, but Alabama was ranked 48th in the country last year in yards allowed per game with 137.8. And they're only giving up less than 4 yards per carry. So, that's why I'm saying it's not terrible by any means, any stretch of the imagination. And especially last year in a defense that these guys were still getting used to. It was the first year in this Kane Wommack defense. So I think going into year 2, you got some different, guys there along the defensive line. I think they know, a little bit better what their role is, what their job is. Same with those linebackers as well. You have Nikhai Hill-Green. You have Justin Jefferson. You have Deontae Lawson there. Another year in this system, I think, is going to provide a spark for, Alabama's defense, especially their run defense there. And even heard a couple of guys talk about, some of the biggest hits in practice so far. Mentioning, DaShawn and Justin Jefferson in particular, 2 of the biggest hits. And Justin Jefferson coming downfield, plugging up some of those holes, having one of the biggest hits so far in fall camp. That's a really positive thing to hear. So what is your confidence level in Alabama's run defense? Let me know what you guys think down to the pinned comment of today's video. Scale it for me. 1 on the low end, 10 on the high end. 1, you don't think we're going to stop anything. It's shit through a tin horn, like Nick Saban used to say. And then 10, you have all the confidence in the world. It's going to be back to that like Leonard Fournette game where he rushed for 34, 36, whatever it was in that game. So let me know what you guys think down at the pinned comment of today's video. Next up, I still don't really know if this is actually a position battle at this Husky position, but between DaShawn Jones and Cam Calhoun, your transfer from Utah, I think you have two really solid guys expected to play at that Husky position. You know, both guys are getting reps there right now, and Kane Wommack even mentioned DaShawn Jones as a guy that, you know, was a little bit banged up during the springtime, but has made a ton of really positive strides here in fall camp, going through summer into fall camp now. And both of these guys, I mean, you know, you go back to last year, and, you know, neither one of them actually has played a lot in that slot, in that nickel, that Husky position, as Kane Wommack calls it there. Cam Calhoun last year played 364 snaps at the corner spot, and then he only played 12 snaps at that, nickel spot. You look at DaShawn Jones, he's played a little bit more at that Husky spot, 105 snaps last year for him, but then also 163 snaps actually at that corner position. So neither guy with a ton of nickel experience there. You even look back to DaShawn Jones' time at Wake Forest, 769 snaps at corner in his first two seasons, only 22 snaps at that Husky nickel slot spot, whatever you want to call it there. I think both guys definitely have the talent, but I do think this spot is going to be one that, we might see some rotation in this year, and maybe it just at the end of the day is going to be who has the hot hand at that spot. Kane Wommack specifically was asked about Cam Calhoun. He said Cam's got a really versatile skill set. So, I mean, he is doing some things corner-wise. He's doing some stuff at the Husky nickel position. Cam's got, I think I mentioned this before, he plays the game with great energy. You got to have that with some of these guys. We are relatively quiet in the secondary for the most part, but I think there is a number of guys, at least a year ago, I think there is a number of guys that bring a little bit of swagger, and sometimes you need that, which is really good. He's certainly one that brings juice and energy every single day. And I remember, back during the springtime, Kane Wommack, talked about Cam Calhoun having that energy, and he specifically said some of those guys from the Cincinnati, Ohio area are the ones that really bring that juice. So Cam Calhoun's one there, and Justin Hill might be another one there with that same kind of mentality as well. But I want to hear from you guys down in the comment section. Who do you guys think will be the Husky for Alabama this year? If you're the coach, if you're Kane Wommack, who would you start at Husky? Type CC for Cam Calhoun or DJ for DaShawn Jones. All right, next up, there were some backups that really did also got a lot of praise yesterday from Kane Wommack and some of those other players as well, like Tim Keenan. Really mentioned some really nice guys that have been providing really nice depth for Alabama's defensive line and at that linebacker spot as well. If you guys remember back to spring practice, Kane Wommack addressed that need at depth along the defensive line. And I kind of thought they'd go out in the transfer portal and get at least 2 or 3 guys from the transfer portal. They didn't end up doing that. All they did was add Kelby Collins. And really, outside of that, they're really going to rely on some of these backups just developing and to see if they can contribute, whether that's this year or next year. Hopefully, all things considered, you're not going to have any injuries, but it is football at the end of the day, and guys get injured. So you need some depth along that defensive line, and hopefully Alabama is going to have that with some of these guys that, we weren't necessarily really expecting to break out here in 2025. We will specifically talk about some of those backups that are shining here in just a second, but you guys can get your Alabama jerseys today. Just go to chatsports.com/Alabama jersey. They're not on sale right now, but at the end of the day, look, if you need a new Alabama jersey, you can go down there to that link at the pinned comment of today's video. You can do custom jerseys, the crimson, the white, or your new starter at quarterback. You can get that Ty Simpson jersey as well. Just go to chatsports.com/Alabama jersey. Like I said, I'll put that link down at the pinned comment of today's video, as well as like the third paragraph-ish, somewhere close to the top in the description of today's video as well. All right, let's look at some of those backups who really got a lot of praise during yesterday's press conferences. QB Reese was one that really did fire me up to hear his name. Both Deontae Lawson and Tim Keenan really gave a shout-out to QB Reese during yesterday's press conferences. And if you remember back during the springtime as well, QB Reese was a guy that was stepping up and was doing a little bit of green dot stuff as well while Deontae Lawson was out. So really nice to hear some of the praise here from Tim Keenan on QB Reese. This is what Keenan had to say on him. He said, "Shout out my boy QB Reese. He's doing what he needs to do. He's stepping up. I'm going to sing his praises. That's my dog right there." A lot of people tried to say that he is undersized, but when you've got heart, when you play with effort, and you do everything that you need to do to cover your behind, he puts the coaches in a position where it's like, you cannot play me. You cannot not put me on the field. I am super excited for QB Reese. That's something that Nick Saban said a lot too, right? If you go back to the time when he was Alabama's head coach, he always said specifically more or less about the quarterback position. Give me an opportunity, play so well in practice that we have to find a spot to put you on the field. I think that kind of goes for, you look at Geno Vandermark last year. He practiced so well that they had to put him on the field, especially, it helped you last year because you had Jaden Roberts that was going in and out as well. But just having that depth at that linebacker spot, especially with, a little bit of question marks right now with, Deontae Lawson coming back from that injury. Nikhai Hill-Green, you got him out of the transfer portal as well, and Justin Jefferson coming back for yet another year with Alabama. Having some of those guys, just depth is a really big thing that can definitely help you, especially with the extended playoffs. The season is a whole lot longer now, so just having some of those guys that are ready to play. And we'll see. Maybe even there's a little bit of a battle there between Nikhai Hill-Green and QB Reese as well. We are just 16 days away from Alabama football returning to our televisions. Do not miss out. We're going to be live for every single Alabama game for our watch parties. So do not miss out. Hit that sub button and join us right here on the Alabama Football Report. We're going to hit these next two guys here at the same time. Isaiah Faga and London Simmons both also got praise, unprompted praise as well from Kane Wommack. And you listen, or you think about a guy like Isaiah Faga. He's now been in the system a couple of years, and the defensive line and the offensive line, I think, are two positions that sometimes guys can definitely break out as freshmen and some of those younger guys, but sometimes it also takes a lot longer. It might be your third or fourth or even fifth year before you actually end up seeing the field. So really nice to hear that Alabama, is building some of that depth along the defensive line. That's something that Kane Wommack talked about in the springtime as well. So it's a positive thing. They only go out and they get one guy out of the transfer portal, and now they are building that defensive line depth as well. Kane Wommack saying Isaiah Faga is doing a really good job. You're seeing some things from London Simmons improving as well. Mboumoua is also improving. So it's nice to see some of the guys that maybe you thought might be a little ways away, but might have a role for us at some point during the season. That is definitely encouraging. So maybe some of these guys might have a role for Alabama along the interior of that defensive line. Tim Keenan also talking about London Simmons here, saying he's definitely making some jumps, doing what he needs to do, stepping up in critical moments. I wouldn't say he's a sleeper, but nobody expected London, an incoming freshman, to do what he is doing. But London, he is making big strides, and he is grading out really, really well. So I am excited for him on that. And look, London Simmons is a guy that now, coming out of high school, he was about 295 pounds is what he was listed on his 247 page. Now, he's gained a little bit of weight. He's up north of 300 pounds now, listed at 303. And, Tim Keenan said that he didn't want to call him a sleeper, but we have been hearing about London Simmons as a guy that is super underrated by these recruiting rankings. He's a diamond in a rough kind of guy that just works really, really hard. You saw going into his senior season, he lost a lot of weight going in and just had an incredible senior season as well. It's yet to actually be seen what he's going to do, but I think some of these early examples of a guy who is new, that the coaching staff found that is underrated. And look, some of the fans when he committed might not have been super happy just because they were looking at his recruiting profile. But I think when you think about this Alabama coaching staff, they're continuing. You see it in this recruiting class as well. They are getting some of these underrated guys that definitely stand out. So might not be this year, but Kane Wommack did unprompted, say that he was a guy that's standing out here. So maybe he is a guy that actually works his way into the rotation for Alabama this season.